we're going to take and pop us up. We're going to start with the water moccasin. All right, guys. So for those of y'all who don't know, this is the common water moccasin. This is the western water moccasin. This is what we have here in Southeast Texas. We'll get on to the conversation about them here in just a moment. Fix everything up. So we're going to wait for a few people to come in, and then we're going to start the show. What's up, McCash? How you doing, man? We got a water moccasin behind us. Oh, man, let's move that out of the way. What's up, Phil? How you doing, man? Made it in on time today. Hello, Sean. How you doing, brother? It's Clint's Critter Chats. So, let's get on this conversation real quick. You know, guys, what's up, Busy Lizzie? Hello, my Jin Jin. You're not so good anymore? I'm so sorry. Oh, you're all good. I understand, Sean. So let's get back into this conversation, shall we? The western water moccasin, which is what we have here in Southeast Texas, the western water moccasin. The eastern stretches up the coast. I don't know why they call it the western water moccasin down here, but the eastern water moccasin stretches up the Atlantic coast. And then you have the Florida water moccasin, also called the cottonmouth, also called the river rattler. You know, they've got a few names to them. Oh, that's not good, McCash. But they've got a few different names to them. And guys, this is what they kind of look like. This is why they're also called the cottonmouth. You see how white the inside of the mouth is? That is literally their threat display. That's how they let you know, hey, leave me alone. And you see these two bulges right here, one right there, and one right here. Those two bulges are their fangs. So you definitely don't want to get tagged. Now, they do have some of the weakest venom of any pit vipers here in America, for sure. But that doesn't mean that they can't wreck your day. All right, here's a better view of a water moccasin. You know, this right here is a western water moccasin, just the same. They do range in color. They can be brown. They can be a brick red to a rusty red color. Nick Gurr, how you doing? Thank you very much, John, for coming in and asking me to call out your friend, your brother Nick. So how you doing? Shout out to you, Nick Gurr. But anyway, guys, so this is the western water moccasin, guys. And they've got some serious, you know, beef going on with them because a lot of people think that they're highly aggressive. And, you know, they're not really aggressive, guys. They just act that way. You know, guys, they don't really want to bite you. Most of the bites are dry bites. Nice. But I always call out people like that, man. That's just how it is, John. Anyway, so as it goes, you know, you have these creatures here, these water moccasins. Now, guys, the cottonmouth was their original name. And so that's what I'm probably going to be calling them now. It's the western cottonmouth. You know, because, guys, that makes just a lot more sense, especially with this bright white mouth that they have. And they can range in color from black, rusty brown, red. When they're little and they're babies, they're born live, the mother hatches the eggs internally and gives birth to the live young, which are little carbon copies, basically. But they have different colorations, usually bright and vibrant, usually that bright red that I was talking about. And they'll have a bright yellow lure on the end of their tail that they can wiggle around to lure in frogs and lizards and whatever else might feed off of them. Because I've even caught these little guys eating spiders. So they will swallow pretty much anything that comes around them when they're hungry. But mostly with a name that means, which I can't pronounce the scientific name. I tried for like 10 minutes this morning. No, not going to happen. But their scientific name literally translates into hook-toothed fish eater. And that's what they do. Most of the time, they eat fish, you know, guys. And contrary to popular belief, they can bite you under the water. So you don't want to come in contact with one of these guys in the water. Now, when I was speaking about the little ones, this is a little one. This is a baby water moccasin, everybody. This one's probably only about a month old or so. So you can see how the color range differs from that of a full-grown adult. You know, these little guys right here, they can range in size from about 2.5 to 3 feet, which is your average size, to the largest one ever captured, which was 6 foot long and weighed over 10 pounds, guys. It was a big snake. It was as big around as my forearm, you know, and these guys just roam around doing their thing. Mom and I picked up a baby one once with the dog's kennel and put it back near the water. Awesome. You know, guys, this is another thing. The water moccasin is the only freshwater venomous pit viper in the world. So Florida, all the way up into Kentucky, and of course from Texas into Arizona, we all have the only species of venomous pit viper in the world that swims at the same time. Because these guys are just as at home in the water as they are on land. Now, these guys right here have gotten a bad reputation for this exact maneuver right here. This is their threat display. This is how they tell you, leave me alone. They're going to curl up into a ball, and they're going to show that big open white mouth, guys. They're going to make everybody think, you know, I'm as big and bad as I could possibly be. And they have some keeled scales going down along the backs. They've usually got some brownish yellow coloration to the belly to a cream color. And as you can see along the edge of the head here, they have kind of a band going across their eye. Now, this is common for all water moccasins, you know, so that's an easy way to tell them. They have vertical pupils, which means they got pupils kind of like a cat's, where all your non-venomous species of water snakes have got pupils similar to that of a fish. So they've got these nice big round eyes, these big round pupils. But when it comes down to vipers, which these guys are pit vipers, guys, they do sense heat. But when it comes down to vipers, guys, these guys are a lot more different. They are, their eyes, yes, they will also hiss as loud as they can, you know, man, and they'll also produce a stink, a must that comes from their tail and just below their jawline. And guys, it reeks. It stinks. But it's trying to do everything it can to get you to leave the animal alone. You know, the other thing about them is their skin. Their skin is completely waterproof even when it's tan. So that's how they actually got the name water moccasin, because the Native Americans used to use them to make water moccasins. They would literally make them to be able to walk in water. And I always thought that was neat. That's how they got their name. At least the one I have encountered. Yeah, they hiss like crazy, man. The little ones don't so much. What states are the water moccasins in? They're in Texas, Oklahoma, Arizona, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Kentucky, North Carolina, Tennessee. There are states that they are being deemed endangered in right now because of, you know, human habitation, things of that sort, and us just viewing them as your typical average everyday pest. But these little guys right here play an important part in the ecosystem. You know, yes, they are in your state there too, Jen, just not as very. Yes, they're very rare in Pennsylvania. I'm talking about their main range, but you can find them in other states. Yes, North Carolina does have them, but they are very rare. They are considered endangered there, which is interesting because we have them everywhere. The western water moccasin is all over the place down here. So it's very hard to picture them being, you know, endangered in any shape, form, or fashion. But they are in certain areas, you know, especially the Florida water moccasin. The Florida water moccasin is getting to be very endangered due to all the different species of animals that are being released into their habitat that allows them to be able to feed off the water moccasin. What's up, BMC? Such as, normally these guys' prey items are things like frogs, fish, little lizards, things of that sort. So maybe a small bird if it falls to the ground. but they really don't go after anything other than that. They're not a very active snake. You know, they'll swim, but their whole body will be seen up above water. You won't just see just the head, which is common for the brown water snake, which they confuse for this guy all the time. Which I found a picture of a brown water snake, but it was so blown up, you guys couldn't tell what it was. So I couldn't exactly put it up here. But anyway, these guys right here are rather simple when it comes down to life. They just want their food. They just want to be left alone. You know, guys, and if you got a ditch out in your backyard, man, you ain't got to worry about a muskrat or a nutria rat because they ain't coming anywhere near these little fellas. You know, they don't like them at all. And guys, they have a hemotoxin, which means that it destroys, you know, meat, and it also coagulates the blood. So, guys, when you get bitten by these guys, you might have a chance of having a heart attack or a stroke before you actually die of the venom. But it's going to be rotting you the entire time. And if you don't get anti-venom in time, you're going to have a hell of a scar. You know, guys, it's going to be gnarly looking, and it will have lasting effects such as blood ulcers. But these guys right here are just a very, very small example of the different animals that you can find. Here's another good example, a prime example of that band going along the eye. You see that band right there, and how these guys have got a short, rounded snout, but a triangular shaped head. And, you know, they've got those vertical slits in the pupils. They've got all these colorations right here. You know, they've got that yellowish color going there. This is a Florida water moccasin. But like I said, every last copperhead or every last cottonmouth or water moccasin has got the same markings along the side of the head. The difference is how dark or how light. Here's an example of a brown one. This is a western water moccasin. This is what I'm used to seeing, guys. You know, this is what I want to put on a walking staff. I want to catch one of these guys, and I want to throw that hide on a walking staff because it makes a great hand grip because of those keeled scales going down along their backs. Not only this, but most of the time, the predators of these guys are things like horned owls, herons, egrets, the American alligator, the common snapping turtle, the alligator snapping turtle. Even large fish will eat these guys. But when you have situations like what we have in Florida, where you've been introduced to new species that are an absolute pest, that cannot be, that just cannot be regulated. Guys, these pests are not only eating the rattlesnake, not only eating the water moccasin, they're eating their babies. And so they're not getting to grow up. So the Florida water moccasin or Florida cottonmouth might end up becoming an endangered species here pretty soon if nothing's done. Now, however, when it comes down to the western cottonmouth, you know, these guys are everywhere they need to be. You know, if there's a body of water, you got a cottonmouth somewhere. You know, you just got to keep looking for them. Unless it's winter, and then they tend to be buried up inside of burrows and things like that, close to the shore and everything like that. So when they wake up, they can just slither straight out into the water. You know, guys, they don't sleep in the water, they don't live in the water, but they do live constantly around it. They're semi-aquatic, and they're the only semi-aquatic pit viper that I know of. You know, guys, and the awesome thing about them is that even though they can sense heat, it's not their main way of tracking. They also use that tongue. You know, let me see if I got one where his tongue's hanging out. No, I don't have one with the tongue hanging out. But anyway, guys, you know, when their tongues are hanging out, they'll be crawling along the floor, similar to this right here. They'll be crawling along the ground, and they'll be flicking their tongue out. And when they flick that tongue out, they have a little small thing called a Jacobson's organ on the top of their mouth. Now, when they pull in that tongue, it collects air particles and scent particles from the air, and it brushes it against that Jacobson's organ. Now, when it brushes it against that Jacobson's organ, it sends signals to the brain of the snake, letting the snake know what's in the area. And it's in a very effective and very strong way of scenting things, because even giant monitor lizards use this. You know, guys, that is how they actually hunt, you know, even underwater. And yes, again, what I will reiterate, It is a myth that they cannot bite you underwater. They will bite you underwater. You know, don't think that they can't. You know, and Shuck, go on, baby. What do you want? What do you want? You hungry? You hungry? You thirsty? You need to go potty? What you want? You need to go potty? All right, guys. I will return. My dog has to be walked. Buddy, pull my pants down, dog. All right, I am back, and we are back to the show. All right, guys. So thank you for the lesson and research. Thank you so much. You know, guys, this snake is also one of the few creatures that can reproduce through parthenogenesis that isn't an insect. Now, what parthenogenesis means is they can literally use their own genetic material to create an exact copy of themselves and produce young that way. Now, most of the young might not survive, but if 4 or 5 of them live, man, you got a small population there. You know, we figured this out that they can reproduce through parthenogenesis through a few zoos having singular water moccasins, because water moccasins don't really get along together. They will try to fight. However, at the same time, when it comes down to mating season, they do a beautiful dance, and the males even kiss the females. Yes, they slither up and they touch snout to snout. They kiss to represent that they are ready to mate. So they're one of the few snakes that can actually have a beautiful relationship with their others. However, they do not take care of their young. As soon as the babies are born and are old enough, give it about a few hours, literally, these little guys are already on the menu. So they've got to get out of there. Yeah, you know, they've got to get out of town. Now, I've got one more thing to do real quick, and I'll be right back. I just wanted to jump in here. I just got to go to the restroom real fast. But when I get back, we'll talk about the American alligator gar. All right, guys, sorry about that. So now we can get on to the American alligator gar, which there are 7 types of gar. They're the spotted gar, the short-nosed gar, the long-nosed gar, the needle-nosed gar, the alligator gar, the heck, you know what? I can't quite remember the other 2, but that's okay, because guys, when we're talking about gars, we're talking about a serious fish here. This is the alligator gar's jaw. This is how the teeth are. The inner row is longer than the outer row. There are 2 rows on top, 1 row on bottom, and they're just jagged everywhere, guys. Not only that, this head can expand wider. to grab bigger prey. So that is a heck of a gnarly set of teeth. Now, also, these guys have been around for 100 million years, guys. We have fossilized evidence of alligator gar from the Cretaceous period, guys. And the way we can tell this is look at these scales. The scales in the head. I couldn't get a better picture of it, but I tried. Now, these are the different types of gar that we have in my area. We have the long-nosed gar, we have the spotted gar, we have the alligator gar, and I believe the bottom one of them is the short-nosed gar. Now, these little guys are usually born pretty small, kind of tiny. I guess that picture didn't come out right either. Yay. But these guys are usually pretty small when they're first born, all right? But however, they get huge. They get huge. That man is 6'2", laying beside an alligator gar. All right, this picture was taken off the Trinity River here in Texas. You know, guys, these guys are massive. Now, they start out little bitty, but they grow fast. Now, by fast, I mean within 3 months, they can be almost 19 inches long. And they're constantly eating. They never stop. And the reason being is because just like a great white shark, they're huge. They need to be able to fuel that growth metabolism. They need to get as big as possible before they get eaten, you know, guys. And several people catch these animals to eat them specifically. And the reason being is because, well, the alligator gar happens to be a rather tasty fish, you know, if you know how to prepare it. But that's the hard part, is learning how to prepare the little guy. Well, big guy. You know, most people end up turning them into alligator gar balls, you know, and that's one of the very few things that, you know, people know how to cook around here with alligator gar. I personally make gar steaks, you know, because you get one big giant chunk of muscle out of the side, out of both sides, you know, guys. But cutting through these scales, it's a pain in the butt, because as you guys could see earlier from that fossil, you know, the whole skin fossilized. That never really happens. But these guys' scales are so tough and so strong because they're modified teeth that the Native Americans and the Neolithic, Paleolithic American humans decided to use the scales as arrowheads and spearheads because they were already pretty sharp. They just needed a little bit of refinement. And guys, they became lethal weapons in the hands of our Native American ancestors. So these guys right here are just stupid powerful. And what I mean by that is they're the largest freshwater fish in America that is a predator. Not only that, but the alligator gar has got some serious strength. I've seen them drag a boat filled with 6 people and all their gear for an hour and a half before the fish tired out. You know, catching one of these big bad boys is not an easy feat. They are very strong. They are very dangerous to get into your boat. In fact, a lot of people back in the day, especially during the 1800s, they thought that the alligator gar was responsible for a lot of alligator attacks. So they would take and do extermination crews, considering this a trash fish and wanting to get rid of it. So they would do extermination crews with giant boats that would electrify the alligator gar. Now they would take the fish that were okay and that were stunned that they wanted to eat, and they'd put them back into the water. However, they'd take this big guy and they'd kill him immediately, you know, guys, and just throw away the meat. They were actually feeding it to cats. They used to make this for cat food. Alligator gar cat food was a big thing in the 1800s here in the South. They thought it was healthy for your cats. And what's up, Benny? How you doing? But anyway, guys, you know, this is just one of the many, many things that don't take and judge a book by its cover. This fish is not very aggressive unless you catch it. You know, if you catch it, then yeah, you're gonna have a fight on your hands, and he's gonna try to bite you. But then again, you put a hook in my mouth, I'm gonna try to bite you too. You know, so I can understand that. But you can see why these guys are hard to get a hook into, because this whole head is just bone. It's just nothing but bone. And once you hook these guys, it's got to stay in that bone in order for you to be able to bring them in. And guys, it makes for a heck of a fight, and they don't really chomp and run. They kind of nibble for a little bit and then they leave. But the American alligator gar is just one example of nature's resilience to be able to survive throughout the years. Because guys, to be able to survive in a time when dinosaurs ruled this world and walked this planet, you got some impressive credentials, my friend. Because these guys here were more than likely one of Spinosaurus's foods. Alligator gar and gar period have just been around for forever. They've been around since the Devonian era. And this makes these animals one of nature's greatest survival stories. And just like the shark, they haven't changed much. Just like the crocodile, not much has changed. These animals haven't had to because their design was almost flawless from the get-go. Even here's a little something that even some people didn't know. You can't eat alligator gar eggs. You know how you can eat most caviar? You cannot do that with alligator gar eggs. And the reason being is because they're toxic, guys. They'll make you sick as you can get. So alligator gar don't only have the defenses while they're, young and adult, but they also have them while they're still in the egg because they have toxic eggs, guys. So you never really want to underestimate an alligator gar. Also, they have a modified swim bladder, guys, which allows them to live in low oxygenated water by being able to take and gulp air from the surface. They can swim up and they'll do a quick little whoop, and they'll swim back down. And that swim bladder modified into a primitive lung, kind of like a lungfish. And it allows them to be able to live in some of the worst situations you've ever seen. I've literally seen an alligator gar living and growing in a sewage ditch. Yeah, a sewage ditch. And they'll eat almost anything, guys. They'll eat perch, they'll eat bass, they'll eat snakes, they'll eat small alligators, they'll eat other fish or other alligator gar. They'll definitely eat birds. There's been a lot of times I've heard of a lot of old folks around here shooting duck. That duck hit that water, and an alligator gar get it before the duck hunter can. And he'd be mad as hell, because there went his duck. And that alligator gar is just sitting there going, heck yeah, I got poultry tonight. Guys. And that's just one of the many things about these guys. They're the ultimate survivor. But unfortunately, they're becoming endangered in Kentucky, Tennessee, and Oklahoma. Normally you can find them all up and down the Mississippi River. You can find them all throughout the Neches River. You can find them all throughout the Trinity River. They live a lot in brackish water. They thrive mostly in brackish water. But guys, people also keep these big things as pets. A lot of people buy these guys about this long and think, oh, it looks so cool. And then it's this long in a month. And they're like, oh, crap, I can't afford to feed this guy. And he's eating everything in my tank. So, guys, you got to be really careful about these guys. You don't necessarily just want one to have one. If you're going to get an alligator gar, you better invest some time and some effort into a pond. Not so much having them swimming around in an aquarium, because you're going to need a big one. You're going to need a huge aquarium just to be able to house these guys. And that's a huge problem. Looks like we've lost people. All right. Okay, we got some more people back. But, guys, this would be a huge problem with people wanting to buy these animals. Don't release them unless you're in an area where they naturally live. So if you have an alligator gar and you live in Louisiana and you decide he's getting too big for your tank, just throw him in the river. They're already there. So just toss them in there. And it's because that's their natural habitat. So, guys, we got to take care of our waterways. We got to take care of our wildlife. Because otherwise, we lose these incredible living fossils daily. Because these guys are used to a specific ecosystem, have been for hundreds of millions of years. And then we take that ecosystem away. And yes, it damages everything. So, I hope you guys enjoyed that little bit of Clint's Critter Chat. I'm going to go on ahead and take real quick and go check back up on my dog, and he's in the backyard, and run back to the restroom again, and I will return. Sorry, guys. 2 cups of coffee this morning is catching up to me quick. All right, guys, I'm back. My Shuck's doing just fine. He didn't decide to get out of the fence or anything, so he's doing great. So welcome in, everybody. What is up, Outdoor with Malachi? You kind of missed the critter chat. We talked about the water moccasin and the alligator gar. I even showed a few pictures of them as best I could, you know. But yeah, how you doing, man? Oh, you might be interested in this. Where is it? Malachi, here it is. I looked in the wrong spot. I thought I left it in the utility room. There's where we are on our Viking sacks, Malachi. What you think? Got some blacksmithing skills a little bit. So yeah, we're doing great, Malachi. Welcome into the show. We're going to go on ahead and go out later on today, and we're going to force this a little bit better. We'll stretch this out a little further. All right? And we're going to actually make it a little wider. So welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. This is the hangout portion of Clint's Critter Chat. We've already had a good long discussion about the alligator gar and the water moccasin. The western water moccasin, to be precise. Because you see, the western water moccasin is the species we have around my area. You know, we don't have the eastern water moccasin, which runs along the coastline. Up around like Kentucky and Georgia and places like that, they have the eastern water moccasin. Of course, Florida has its own variety because it's Florida. But then we have the Florida water moccasin, and then we have the eastern water moccasin, or the western water moccasin, which is what we have here. You know, so I'm glad that everybody was able to come and join in and have a good time. You know, we're still going to be sitting here. If y'all got any other questions about these animals, just ask me, and I'll answer them to the best of my abilities. So for right now, guys, I'm just going to sit here and show you. We talked about this guy here, the western water moccasin. And we talked about this big bad boy here, the American alligator gar. And when I say big, I mean big. They are some big old boys. And they've got a gnarly set of teeth on them. And this is a good picture here. As you can see, I forgot to talk about this picture. As you can see, this is where you can see the double rows of teeth and the small row on the bottom. The top teeth have got a double row. Bottom teeth have only got a single row. But they definitely got a heck of a set of jaws on them. And that head is completely bone. You know, so that makes them very, 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 very stout. So, yeah, guys, that's what we talked about. So how's everybody feeling today? How's everybody doing? How's everybody's morning? We had a great little lesson with you guys. We're only 34 minutes in. And let's see what's going to happen here in the chat. So, guys, if nobody's going to speak, then I might go on ahead and end the chat early today, you know, and just do an extra long foraging session again today. So this is totally up to you guys. But if y'all want me to end Clint's Critter Chat now, y'all go on ahead and let me know. I know my Jin's multitasking, so she can't necessarily answer. You still here, Benny? You still here, Malachi? What about you, Busy Lizzie? Or BMC? What about Sean? All right, we still got our Jin. You know, we still got our Jin here. So, hello guys, once again, welcome in. I did want to show y'all also, we got the dolphins done on our walking staff for Jin. They look great. We're doing the waves right now, and then we just got the runes and the cross, and that's going to be done later on tonight. Multitasking, love, that's kind of what I feel like I'm doing, is multitasking. But it seems like you're the only one who wants to speak to me right now, my love. But anyway, guys, so I'd like to thank everybody who showed up to be able to take and learn something today. Now, I will say this, guys. The alligator gar and its teeth were used for many, many things. They use them a lot in all kinds of stuff in the Native Americans, including tattoos, which is where I get mine from. So yes, the Native Americans would tattoo themselves using alligator gar teeth and homemade ink. And usually made out of beetle shells, honey, and some charcoal to give it color. And you can also mix in other colorations and stuff like that too, but it was a little more harder to do. I only know how to do black. So anyway, guys, I'd like to welcome y'all all in. Thank you so much for showing up. And it looks like we're slowing way, way down, guys. It looks like we might not even be able to finish out the full hour because there's just nobody talking. You know, so what we're going to do is probably just go on ahead and exit out of this one and just call it Clint's Career Chats and leave it at that. You know, guys, because it just slowed down too much. All right, everyone. We'll catch you next time. See you from a swamp, later from a gator. And remember, love your mama, love your papa, love yourself, be kind, and always find a way to help. All right, everybody. We'll catch you here next time. Same place, same time. All right? Just remember, tomorrow's Morning Mojo.